Some of you might know I'm Tony from Mercy Perrysburg Family Medicine. As we do the third Wednesday of each month, give a talk on a different medical topic. And today we're going to talk about nutrition as we get older. You know, we often talk about things like wrinkles, our medical problems, our chronic conditions, our aches and pains. But one of the things we never seem to talk about is about nutrition. And I have an 83-year-old father-in-law in Napoleon who hates when I bring up nutrition because he doesn't have the best health history and he's a meat and potatoes kind of guy. And anytime I try and broach the subject of, something, it can't come from me. It's got to come from one of his crony buddies that, he has bacon and eggs with every Wednesday morning. Or somebody like that to kind of get them to introduce, hey, and I'm on this kick now and he needs somebody else. It's kind of like trying to teach. I always say it's trying to like teach your own kid how to ride a bicycle before you take the training wheel or when you take the training wheels off. I was never successful, but my boys would listen to the neighbor girl, who's 2 or 3 years older than them, and to do that. So sometimes it comes down to that. I'm going to do a little caveat here. I have this handout for you, but I'm going to talk a little bit off of that handout. You're going to probably see some things that are a little similar, but I have some other notes that I feel you can always read this stuff. But I think that some of the other information that I have here is going to kind of supplement that and support it so that we can get the most out of our 25 minutes here. But healthy, like I said, healthy aging isn't about chasing eternal youth or even preventing malnutrition. My goal, my focus is to help people try and maintain vitality, increase their independence, so that as we get older, we can find joy in the years as they pass, and making sure that our bodies stay sharp and resilient. How do we do that? I think the very first step in healthy aging is trying to commit to a better, well-rounded, whole food balanced diet. So nutrition plays a very key role, nutrition plays a very key role as we age, because our nutritional needs change over time, and that we need to make sure that as we age, we're following a more proper. Sometimes you'll hear me say diet, but I'm saying lifestyle because diet, just like exercise, is a word that turns people off. So instead of exercise last month, I said staying active. And now instead of saying diet, I just say a nutritional balance. So try and keep things politically correct. There's basically 3 key nutritional considerations, and these aren't on the handout, but the first one is nutrient diet density. So we need to make sure that we are getting the proper vitamins and minerals without taking on excessive calories, because we all know that excessive calories leads to weight gain and some other things. So what are key essential vitamins and minerals? How can we get those? Some people want to take the shortcut and say, you know what, I'm going to continue to eat how I eat. So I'll take multivitamins. And those aren't a bad thing. But I need to make sure that you have that discussion with your primary care physician, because you need to know what your levels are. You need to know that you're taking the right multivitamin. Some people say, well, is too much of a vitamin a bad thing? Not necessarily, because you just pee it out. Our bodies excrete additional nutrients or minerals, vitamins out of our body in the form of urine. But, trying to, again, we've heard this since we were little kids, and I'm going to hammer it home now. Fruits, veggies, whole grains, lean meats, healthy fats, and we're going to talk about what those are. The other thing we want to do is make sure we're trying to get in the proper amount of protein intake. because protein is what helps to build and maintain muscle mass. It keeps up our strength as we decline over age. And what are, as our muscles decline over age. Now, what are healthy proteins? Poultry, fish, beans, certain dairy products. I think it's been great that research over the last few decades of say trying to cut back on red meats. It's okay to have a steak once in a while, but when you go to the meat market and you're looking in that case, yeah, that 12-ounce, porterhouse looks delicious, but you need to be thinking more 3 to 4 ounces. So I think there's something to be said about sweets, red meats, other types of things, but all good in moderation. The third thing we need to think about in terms of nutrition, and we often overlook this, and you were right on cue there, is hydration. So, because our sense of thirst diminishes or declines as we age, so we need to make sure that we are getting in a fair water intake. Now, a lot of times you'll hear 6 to 8 glasses of water. Our bodies will tell us when we're thirsty. I've heard that from more than one kidney doctor as they say, it's nice to have somebody tell you 6 to 8 glasses of water a day, but it's hard for some people unless you have a strict routine to make yourself accountable for drinking that much all the time. So, we certainly want to push water. Some people say I don't like water. Well, now we have these little flavorings, and we need to make sure we're watching that they aren't high in calories, things like that. But herbal teas are very good. And then there's certain hydrating foods and veggies that a lot of people don't know about or don't think consume water. We think watermelon, but there are other things that we're going to mention here in a few. So a balanced diet helps to reduce the risk of chronic diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, which is bone health, which is why we talk about vitamin D and calcium and, getting certain dairy products. But we also need to make sure that we support our brain health in the process as well, because our brain health is what helps to keep us from moving into stages of dementia or something like that. I've talked before about what is considered a modifiable risk factor and a non-modifiable risk factor for anything to include dementia. Modifiable things are those things that we can change: how we eat, how we exercise, some of the doing puzzles or just being part of a group like this. Non-modifiable things are things we can't change: our age, our race, our sex, our family history, things that are just going to play a factor. So as much as you try sometime to work hard and combat something, if you have a family history of something, chances are you're going to be a little bit more challenged in terms of trying to, slow down the process of potential risk of heart disease or dementia or something like that. One of the big things we need to stay cognizant of or pay attention to is our metabolism, because it slows down with age and our bodies require fewer calories in order to function. It was interesting. I was just hearing somebody yesterday on the radio talk about how their parents would always yell at them for not finishing their plate when they were eating. But the person made total sense when they said, the problem is my mom gave me the same portions as all the other adults at the table, and I was a kid, so I don't eat that much. And the same holds true for older adults. Now we're at the opposite end of the spectrum, and make food for my father-in-law or something, and I'll say, well, I'm not that hungry. And I said, well, there's not that much there. But now I have to stop and think, when I say there's not that much there, it's in my eyes that there's not much there. But again, if his If his sense of hunger isn't there, then he's just going to eat what's necessary to maintain, enough calories and to sustain energy for throughout the day. So again, as age-related changes in taste, appetite, and digestion make it more challenging to eat. And we're going to talk about digestion here as well. But nutrition, like I said, and I'll reiterate this again, is the frontline defense against diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, cognitive decline, and certain types of cancers. So again, it might be on the next. I'm going to talk a little bit about this right here. Good sources of protein. I'm going to reiterate. Lean meats, fish, eggs, beans, lentils. Some people say, what are lentils or legumes? Beans, chickpeas, just peas. You think about things that are in a pod. And again, if you're my father-in-law, who's a meat and potatoes guy, some of this just isn't going to work. So what do we do to try and supplement that? Because if I haven't changed my eating patterns over my 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, I'm sure as heck I'm going to change them in my 80s. A lot of times we get to the point of where we say we have that mindset. I'm going to die of something. I'm going to eat what I want to eat. I'm going to drink what I want to drink, and I'm going to go out happy with a full stomach. And that's just the mindset. But there are some people who have that life-changing event, maybe some kind of health scare where they say, okay, regardless of how old I am, let me now start to think about what can I do differently moving forward. I hate for some people to have that epiphany that way, but for some people, that's what happens. The thing I want to say about the proteins that I mentioned, just try and make sure that you're doing your best to spread them evenly across meals. So, not trying to front load everything for breakfast in terms of, having an omelet with, the eggs and the poultry and the cheese and the fruits and veggies, and then cheating yourself, having cheat meals the rest of the day, but trying to spread those things evenly over time. Yes.
I have a question about the protein drinks.
Yeah.
Big jug of powder.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take that out.
Mm-hmm. We can talk about that. Yes, but very good question, because some people don't necessarily absorb protein well, and some people don't want to pick from this category of foods. And so we need to supplement in another way. It could be the protein powders. The question is, how much of that do you need? How often do you need it? Is your body absorbing it well? Sometimes that's cheaper approach than doing Boost or Ensure, because they come in their own little individualized bodies, so you know how much bottles, so you know how much you're consuming, but those are very pricey. So sometimes taking the more cost-effective approach of the powders is good, just making sure that it's mixed well, and that, so I'm very happy to hear that you're doing something to help supplement that. Yes.
I think it's the easiest way. Sometimes maybe the protein shake is easier to manage. Something out the door. I don't do that a lot, but once in a great while, once a month, maybe I know I'll be somewhere and I won't have any protein, so that would be.
And I work with 26 doctors, and I will tell you that on a daily basis, I see at least 6 to 8 of them just running around in the morning with the protein shakes or whatever, because they don't take the time, for whatever personal reason, to sit down, make a meal, have a well-balanced, breakfast. So they're having these protein shakes on a run. So that's not a bad thing, as long as you know that you need to supplement your body with something in the morning moving forward.
I read about the protein absorption, and mine was going down, and like in Iowa and Waterloo,
Right.
they used to have screen it routine, and the protein was starting to go down, but they said the acidity in the stomach made a difference. And then I was a math major, I was a higher chemistry major, I thought, it's like I knew that calcium is base. So, and calcium, because my mother had osteoporosis, I had some bone loss, but I mean, but that can make a difference.
You're right, and you raise a good point, because some people. And I've done this talk before with like osteoporosis, we talk about taking calcium and vitamin D together. Because the calcium is what helps the body digest or absorb the vitamin D. So there are certain things that you need to do, and you have this pH balance or whatever in your gut, and you have this gut flora that sometimes doesn't break things down well enough to be able to absorb.
It's just like smaller meals more often, so there's
Right.
not as much food, and then add fermented things.
Right, we're gonna talk about, you're peeking at my notes. You're peeking at my, I wanna let you know. We always talk about low fat, low fat, low fat. I think one of the important things to realize is that fat is not the end. Fat is not necessarily an enemy. Our brain is made up of 60% fat. So what we need to do is bring into our body healthy fats to help support our brain health, our mentation. What are healthy fats? Typically a lot of omega-3s. People know what omega-3s are. These are fish. These are sardines, salmon, things like that. Some people either have an allergy or they just don't like it. For whatever reason, you either like fish or you don't like fish. And if you do like fish, there's some fishes you like. I like a white fish. I don't like salmon. I don't like sardines. So, but what can I do personally on my journey to find healthier ways? And it's going to be different for every single person in this room. But the studies do show that omega-3, things like salmon, sardines, things like that, help to slow cognitive decline, improve our mood, and even reduce things like Alzheimer's disease. So there are some benefits. For those in the room that are Catholic or otherwise practice, today's Ash Wednesday, we're starting the Lenten season, but at least you're gonna get fish on Fridays. I grew up in a house where my parents ate fish every Friday, so a little bit of an aversion there. There's other healthy fats that we need to think about. Avocado oil, or avocados in general, nuts, seeds, olive oils. So we need to think about those things. The fats that aren't good for us are the unhealthy trans fats or excessive saturated fats. What are those? Things we gravitate to in life, some things that taste a little bit better. Fried foods, baked goods, heavily processed foods. But again, these will affect our gut, they'll slow down our metabolism, and are not good. Carbohydrates, we always talk about high protein, low carbs, high healthy protein, low carbs. Carbohydrates are a little bit misunderstood. They're important, they are an important sense of energy, particularly for our brains and our muscles. What we think about sometimes is when people have carbs, their blood sugars and everything spike, and then it comes down, and that's when people tend to hit a wall. So what are some healthy carbs? There's basically two types of carbohydrates. There's complex carbs and there's refined carbs. Complex carbs are the ones that we want to take into our bodies. Whole grains, oats, quinoa, brown rice, barley, a fiber aid to assist with digestion. It might be something like Metamucil or something.
Flaxseed.
What's that?
Flaxseed.
Yeah, flaxseed's another one. The thing is, if you're doing something like a dietary fiber aid like Metamucil, It's something that people don't understand. You have to do that on a daily basis. It's not something that you can do once or twice a week and say, well, maybe my body needs a little bit of regulation. It's something that needs to just be part of daily, your daily behaviors. But these complex carbohydrates help to prevent constipation, regulate our blood sugars, and help to regulate our cholesterol as well. Refined carbohydrates are those things that we need to kind of shy away from. But on the flip side, just like the unhealthy fats, refined carbohydrates taste pretty good. Those are white bread, pastries, sugary cereals, sweetened beverages, because again, these are the ones that provide that quick boost of energy. But at the back, on the backside, when you start to come down, it's going to lead to you being more sluggish. But more seriously, those types of things are going to lead to diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. There's things called micronutrients that we need to kind of focus on. And these are the unsung heroes of aging. What are micronutrients? That's just the fancy way of saying calcium, vitamin D, vitamin B12. There are actually 12 B vitamins, but 8 of them are essential. So we mostly get those in our diet. Some of them are like I said, thiamine, folate, you can also get those in multivitamins, but most of us, if we're eating a fairly well-balanced diet, we're getting those on a daily basis. So we know about calcium and vitamin D helping with bone health. Vitamin B12 is what helps with nerve health, and boosts our metabolism a little bit. Magnesium and potassium are very important as we get older. They support muscle function, help with our sleep, help with our heart health. And potassium helps with blood pressure and reduce the risk of stroke. So what are some of the foods we should do? Again, nuts, seeds, leafy greens, bananas, sweet potatoes, things like that. A lot of older individuals end up with cramping as they get older, and trying to make sure that you are taking things like vitamin D, like vitamin D3, or definitely magnesium, potassium are very important for older individuals, particularly who have leg cramping. I'm certainly guilty of getting up at 3 a.m. every once in a while and doing a rain dance because I got a bad cramp that needs to be, taken care of. Again, I'm going to emphasize one more time, hydration is very important, because in addition to it helping with our skin, which we've had that talk about before, it helps to reduce urinary tract infections, fatigue, cuts down on constipation, aids with our digesting, which leads to my next thing, is gut health. A lot of people, I found this very interesting when I was researching today's talk. They said that our gut is often referred to as our second brain, because we have a lot of microbes that live there, which helps with our gut flora and food breakdown and vitamin and mineral breakdown. But if we have a healthy gut, then it's going to help with our metabolism, help with our immunity, and some other things. So what are some things that we can do for gut health? And this is what we were talking about earlier. Things that are rich in fiber. So if we need to take those, that protein shake that has some additional fiber in it, probiotics. Probiotics are something that are gaining more and more popularity. Yogurt, garlic, onions, bananas, sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, all these things that are fermented. Again, it's kind of like fish. You either like these things or you don't like these things, but you need to try and find different ways. So I got 2 or 3 minutes. My take-home message is try and use eating as a way to bring happiness to you and find ways to, like I said, spread things throughout the day. It's okay to cheat every once in a while. You can have that red meat. You can have some candy. Dark chocolate is the best for you. But don't skip meals. Even if it's the young lady said in the back, having smaller meals throughout the day, you know, a lot of us grew up breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's what we knew. But trying to spread things out a little bit. Shared meals. If you're a person that typically eats alone, it might lead to social isolation. You're probably not holding yourself accountable. So going out in the dining area once or twice a week and sharing a meal with, make some new friends or whatever would be great. I think it's important to talk about practicing food, safe food habits. So paying close attention to what's in our fridge. You know, expiration dates, there's best by, there's best used by, and there's something that should say, definitely don't consume by, you know. Taking the plastic lid off this milk jug and doing the smell test isn't always necessarily, you know, the best way. Making sure that we're washing our hands often for not avoiding cross-contamination. Making sure that when we're older, we try and cook our foods a little bit longer. Some of us like those steaks and everything medium rare. But again, we got to think about our gut flora and our gut health. Is it able to process everything properly? So refrigerating leftovers properly and just trying to limit ourselves on things like soft cheeses, like brie and other things like that, undercooked meats, as well as undercooked seafoods. And some people now are on this swing of unpasteurized milk, and it's probably something that is not for everyone. My biggest final take-home message is please make sure that you're having a meaningful conversation with your physician, that you're getting your blood work drawn all the time, that you know what your levels are of a lot of the things I mentioned, your potassium, magnesium, your cholesterol level, all those things, so that we can talk about, do we need to take a look at altering your nutritional status in a different way? Do we need to go on a Mediterranean diet? Do we need to go on a DASH diet? Do we need to include things like Boost and Ensure or the protein shakes, you know, the powders and that? So again, everybody in this room's differently. We all have our own journey. We just need to find the best approach for each of us moving forward to maintain health from head to toe. So, yes.
And the protein drinks,
Mhm.
I'd like to try some because I know I don't get enough protein in a day.
Mhm.
But if you read the back, some of the chemicals that they put in those things are scary.
Some of it is for to maintain freshness, but there are some that are more, I would say just about every single one of them is not 100% pure. The question becomes, what approach do you want to take as an informed consumer? You're absolutely right. You take a look at those things, and some of the things you can't even pronounce. So
It kind of, sometimes it makes it keep from spoiling.
that's what I'm saying. It maintains, right, exactly. So there are those things, but also I've encouraged some people in this talk that I've given is when you're talking to your primary care physician, do you need to have a referral for a dietitian that's going to kind of help you? A lot of people don't think about their access to a dietitian who's going to take a little bit more one-on-one time with you to sit down and say, show me what your daily food consumption looks like. What are your concerns? What do you want to change different? And they can help find different ways to